Chronic sleep debt promotes obesity, increased body weight, increased BMI. So if you're an insomniac, potentially you'll turn into a blimp. You'll get bigger. There's nothing you can do about it. Studies show that people who have, well, there is something you can do about it. You can start sleeping. Studies show that people who have restricted sleep patterns consume more calories, especially in fat. Why do they consume fat? Because fat makes you feel better. Fat has tryptophan in it. Tryptophan is a precursor for serotonin. And for that reason, people will eat fat trying to dissipate their depression or their sad feelings. And of course, these people are the more likely to eat between meals, and they usually eat fatty foods. Sorry that I'm showing you a picture of a woman in her underwear. Children and adults who sleep less have a higher percentage of body fat than those who sleep more. One study found that as sleep decreased from 8 to 5 hours, the basal metabolic rate increased more than 3%. So as you can see, it causes you to be obese. All you need to do is sleep. Poor sleep stimulates an increase in the hunger triggering hormone ghrelin and decreases the hunger suppression hormone leptin. Sleep loss also elevates levels of cortisol, which promotes the storage of calories and body fat. And this is one of the reasons why you graduate from high school, you go off to college, especially with both males and females. They gain weight. One of the reasons is because they're not getting as much exercise, but the other reason is because they have chronic sleep loss. They're doing things. They're talking to friends. They're staying up and drinking. They're doing stupid things because they're only 18 years old, 19 years old, so they're not real bright. You're not really smart until you're 25 or 26 years old. And then they gain weight, and they call it the freshman 15, gaining 15 pounds between high school and the end of your freshman year in college. It's real. It really happens. This is especially true of middle-class white people. They'll go off to college. They're under their parents' thumb at home while they're in high school. They go off. Now they're independent. They can eat whatever the hell they want, whenever they want. So what do they eat? They eat pizza, of course. What else is there? And they have to wash it down with a beer. You have to wash it down with a beer. You don't have a chance. So they do things like gain 15 pounds. And as you can see, she is a little plumper. This lady is a little plumper than she was when she was in high school. Who knows what she was doing in high school? Maybe she was a cheerleader. Maybe she was an athlete. Now she's just a little bit chubbier. This guy also has gained 15 pounds. Unfortunately, he gained it around his waist, which is not a good place to gain your weight because it can cause diabetes. Same thing with this guy. Same thing with this guy. Same thing with this guy. Same thing with this guy, but we know where he got his extra weight. We can see what he was consuming in order to gain his weight. Same thing with this guy. Same thing with this lady, young lady. And you can see she's gained the weight right there in her gut. Not the best place in the world to gain weight, and that is it. I won't show you any more chubby people. Sleep deprivation suppresses immune functioning. Irregular sleep leads to increased immunological signaling molecules such as tumor necrosis factor, interleukin-1, interleukin-6. Elevated levels of these cytokines is associated with diabetes, with cardiovascular disease, with inflammation, with pain sensitivity, with other chronic illnesses. So not only are you going to develop these problems, but it's going to hurt more. Your arthritis is going to be more painful. Your carpal tunnel is going to be more painful. Sleep loss promotes insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is a key factor in diabetes, of course. As a matter of fact, that's a definition of the diabetes 2, diabetes mellitus type 2. Fat cells in people who experience sleep restriction have a 30% reduction in their ability to respond to insulin. This is serious stuff. Diabetes is endemic on this reservation. It's endemic on almost all Indian reservations. It's endemic among Hispanics. It's endemic with a lot of different individuals. Is the problem sleep deprivation? Is that really what's taking place here? The less you sleep, the more likely that you're going to have this problem, that you're going to develop diabetes. If the sleep loss is not chronic, this process will reverse itself. The human body tries to make itself normal. It wants to always be normal. It doesn't want to have diabetes. It wants to function without diabetes. But if you have a chronic problem with sleep deprivation, then potentially what you are doing is making your cells less sensitive to insulin. They become insensitive to insulin. Now that's type 2 diabetes, and now we have to treat it. We don't have a choice, because otherwise you'll die. And of course, that's not good. But your body will try to reverse the process if we can catch it soon enough. And this is one of the reasons why we try to tell people to exercise. That's why we try to tell people to exercise, because that can reverse the process. If you exercise, it's going to make you sleep better at night. So you're not only are you burning calories, which is a good thing, but also you're allowing yourself to sleep better. And sleep is extremely important. This is one of those things that nobody cares about. Nobody thinks about, did I get my 6 to 8 hours last night? Did everybody get your 6 to 8 hours last night? Were all of you good girls and boys? I was. You're counting. Wow, 8 hours, there you go, that's good, okay. I got my 6. As a matter of fact, I was watching television, and I got so tired that I crawled into bed and went to sleep for 2 hours. And I woke up, of course the fire was out. It was so sad. Then I had to do all the stuff I have to do before I go to bed. Went to bed about 2:30, slept until 6:30. So I got my 6. All right, I'm not going to develop diabetes. My wife has just been diagnosed with pre-diabetes. What's her problem? Well, she's also been just diagnosed with sleep apnea. So she's not sleeping. And she's going to kick herself into diabetes. Damn it. She doesn't listen to me. I'm the last person in the world she'll listen to. That's okay. As long as she doesn't develop diabetes. The adolescent body is more flexible than the adult body, and this is one of the reasons why people rarely develop diabetes as adolescents. Usually they develop diabetes later on in life, in middle age, when they turn 30 or 40 years old. This is when they usually develop diabetes. A study found that adolescents that chronically get only 6 hours of sleep a night can increase their insulin sensitivity by 10% with just 1 extra hour of sleep. And nobody talks about this stuff, but we need to. You got to get your sleep. Sure, you can stay up all night. I used to sleep 6 nights a week. One night I just didn't go to sleep. I just didn't go to bed. And I was fine. I could do that. Now that I'm 70 years old, I can't do that anymore. If I try to do that, I'm SOL, as it were. And the L stands for luck. I won't tell you what the S stands for. Out. No, that's the O. Okay. Sleep loss is linked to chronic inflammation. This adversely affects our metabolic functioning, our neural functioning, our endocrine functioning. This mimics accelerated aging. Older adults who do not have sleep problems live longer than those who do. So, and my wife has just declared to me that she's dying. Why did she do that? Well, she's got sleep apnea, so she's not getting proper sleep. So she knows all these things are taking place. All these negative things are taking place. So she needs to fix her sleep apnea in order for everything to go back to normal. This is Lisa Robin Kelly. I don't know if you remember this lady from the 70s show, which I never watched. I never watched the 70s show, so I missed Lisa Robin Kelly. But she had to drop off the show. They had to replace her with somebody else. And it was because she was using drugs, a lot of drugs. She died at a rehabilitation center. She checked herself into the rehab center. That night she took a cocktail of all the drugs she had in her pocket, and she never woke up. They killed her. Evidently they didn't check her pockets. I don't know. But as you can see, she was a fairly young looking individual. When she died, she was not so young. She died at 43. That doesn't really look like a 43-year-old. She's a mess. You need to get your sleep. Sleep is used by the brain to repair damage, to replenish energy stores, promote neurogenesis. Poor sleep can lead to impaired concentration, impaired memory, impaired creativity, increased reaction time, increased errors, increased accidents. Driver fatigue was blamed on 20% of the traffic accidents in 2002 in the United States. This is really dangerous stuff. I fall asleep sometimes when I'm driving, and I will try to stop and take care of myself. As a matter of fact, when I was driving back, I had to stop in Ottawa, Kansas. I stopped in Ottawa, Kansas, and I stopped the car, turned the car off, and I laid my head on my chest, and I woke up about an hour and a half later. And I was completely refreshed, ready to take off and make my way to Guthrie, Oklahoma. If anybody's ever been to Guthrie. Somebody ever been to Guthrie? They have the Bluegrass Festival there every year. Yeah. It's quite exciting. Guthrie, Oklahoma. Avoid all forms, so in order to improve your sleep, you need to avoid all forms of caffeine close to bedtime. Don't drink any coffee, don't drink any tea. Stay away from soft drinks with caffeine in them. Stay away from chocolates, got lots of caffeine in it. And stay away from nicotine, of course, which mimics caffeine. Exercise regularly, that will improve your sleep. Complete your workout at least 3 hours before bedtime so that your body, the lactic acid has left your body. If you fall asleep with lactic acid in your system, you'll wake up during the night. That's the problem. Yeah, so you don't sleep very soundly. So, establish a consistent schedule and relaxing bedtime routine. Take a bath. Sometimes will relax people, especially females. I know I'm picking on women. Males not so much. Massages, baths, warm massaging baths. That doesn't work on, usually doesn't work on males, but it will work on females for some reason. It increases your endorphins. And I don't know why it doesn't work on guys, but it doesn't seem to work on guys nearly as well as it works on women. Relaxingly good book, especially maybe your text is about as boring. And that'll knock
only
you.
one sentence, and I'm like, nope.
That's it. I gotta read something a little bit better than this. Avoid alcohol. It can lead to disrupted sleep. I think I told you about my girl. No, it was in a different class. I had a girlfriend one time that would go to bed with a six-pack. That was her idea of a good time. Oh man. She was a nurse. She looked like Barbara Eden. Barbara Eden, except she had dark hair. Oh, she was really attractive. Create a sleep-conducive environment that is dark, it's quiet, cool, and it's comfortable. You need to be as comfortable as possible. If you're cold, of course, as you sleep, your body temperature will actually go down. So if you're not warm when you go to bed, then potentially you'll wake up cold, and you certainly don't want that to happen. You need to be nice and warm. Sweating's okay. Sweating's much better than waking up shivering. Hide the clock face. Reassure yourself that occasional temporary sleep loss causes no great harm, and the reality is it doesn't. Well, we're going to talk about this in just a second, but if you don't get enough sleep one night, you can make it up the next night. No sweat. No big deal. The human body wants to be normal. It doesn't want to have a deficit like that. So it will correct things. The human body will correct things. So if you stay up one night, the next night you'll sleep longer. And you'll go into REM much longer the first night. The second night you'll go into delta wave sleep more readily. In 2010, 180,811 U.S. citizens died from injuries, from car crashes, poisoning, firearms, and falling. 120,859 of these deaths were classified as unintentional deaths. The rest of them were intentional deaths. Just under 60,000 deaths were due to intentional injuries, homicide, suicide, or fatalities in war. Of course, we don't have that many fatalities in war, thank goodness. In 2010, 3 million U.S. citizens were hospitalized for non-fatal injuries. 30 million people were treated in emergency rooms for injuries from accidents. With people between the ages of 1 to 44, accidents are the leading cause of death between the age of 1 and 44. Among people 1 to 24, the leading cause of death are accidents, 38%, all other causes, 26%, suicide, 13%, homicide, 13%, cancer, 7%. That's between the ages of 1 and 24. For people 25 to 44, the leading causes of death are all other causes, 32%, accidents, 26%, cancer, 13%, heart disease, 12%, suicide, 11%, and homicide, 6%. For children between 1 and 4, the leading cause of injury-related death is drowning and motor vehicle accidents. Keep the kids away from water. It seems like they can float, and they can. A little bit. But as soon as you look away, they're going to go right to the bottom. I don't know why. It has something to do with your eyes. As soon as you look away, they go right to the bottom. I have never figured that out before. For children between 5 and 9, the leading injury-related death is motor vehicle accidents, 50%, fire burns, 14%, and drowning, 12.6%, between 5 and 9. The leading cause of death for adolescents is motor vehicle accidents at a rate of 51.1%. This is true despite the adolescent drivers have exceptional reflexes. They have amazing reflexes. And that's what the video games are all about. They have eye-hand coordination. The main reasons is because they're stupid, not because they have bad reflexes, but they are dumb as dirt. They drive too fast. They drive under the influence of alcohol. These cannot be experienced drinkers. Experienced drinkers really can drive drunk. They really can. But they've been drinking for a long time. And they've been driving for a long time. And both acts are somewhat automatic. Especially the driving becomes automatic. If you've ever driven a long distance, sometimes you will realize, I haven't thought about the road for the last 175 miles. I haven't even been thinking about the road. How am I staying on the road and hitting my brakes when the red lights come on? How do I do that? Well, it's all automatic. But that's when you're older, when you've got experience driving. As a child, of course, as an adolescent, as a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old, you may have amazing reflexes, But driving isn't an automatic action yet. It won't be automatic for another 5 or 10 years. And you don't have that much experience drinking. So these kids, because they have such fabulous reflexes, think they can do anything. They're bulletproof. They're not. Turns out that they're just their bodies are just as pierceable as anything else. They're certainly not bulletproof. Anyway, they drive under the influence of alcohol. They drive while distracted. This is something brand new. Once upon a time, telephones were attached to the wall with wires. You couldn't drive and talk on the phone or text at the same time. All of a sudden now, of course, over the last 15 or 20 years, now we have telephones that you can talk to people. My wife will Google things while she's driving, which drives me nuts. Google, wake up, Google, or can't remember what she said. She starts screaming at Google and asking it all these ridiculous questions. Anyway, people drive distracted. Of course, I drive distracted too, but I've been driving for 50 years. I eat while I drive. A lot, I do. Okay. I always, on the road, I always eat and drive at the same time. But I can do it because I've been doing it for ever.
My sister can do her makeup while driving downtown Phoenix.
Oh, is that right?
Las Vegas.
That's amazing. And it looks good when she gets there. But she's been doing it for a long time. And she's not a 19-year-old trying to text and put on her makeup at the same time while she's driving with her elbows. One reason for adolescent poor impulse control and decision making is because the two pairs of their brains that control impulse control, two parts of their brains that control impulse control and decision making mature at different rates. The amygdala and the limbic system mature faster than the prefrontal cortex. And this is what we are talking about when we say your brain doesn't mature until you're 25 years old. What are we talking about? We're talking about the prefrontal cortex. This is where all your thinking takes place, right up here. This is not the place to get hit because this is where you do all your thinking. So if you're going to smack your kid around, don't hit him in the front of the head. Hit him someplace else. Hit him on the butt. They don't think with their fanny. I don't think they do. That's just, sometimes they do. I don't know. Anyway, so the part that matures the fastest is your amygdala and your limbic system. This is your reptilian brain, your amygdala. Your amygdala is where all your emotions come from. If you ever wonder why your teenage son or daughter keeps arguing with you, it's because they do their thinking through their emotional portion of their brain. This part is not mature yet. They haven't figured it out yet. The amygdala, of course, controls fear and excitement. So they'll get excited about really strange things like, ooh, Justin Bieber has decided he's not going to sing anymore. Did anybody read that? He has problems and he has to figure them out before. He just got married. Maybe that's his problem. He just got married. You don't know Justin Bieber? You don't follow the Biebs? You miss all the good stuff. Teens are more likely than older drivers to underestimate dangerous situations or to be unable to recognize hazardous situations. Teens are more likely to speed and to tailgate than older drivers. If there are male passengers, then risky behavior increases. Males make other males do stupid things. Males are pretty damn stupid anyway, but if there are two males in the same car, one will talk the other one into, I wonder what would happen if we go into the ditch right now. Do you think we'll flip over? And so what happens next? He tries driving down into the ditch, and he does flip over. And of course one of them's killed. And then the other one goes, oh, that's what would happen. No, that's stupid. Teens have the lowest rate of seatbelt use of any age group. Of all drivers, teens are the most likely to drink and drive. When do people drink? I was talking about this in the last class. Drinking is an adolescent behavior, as curious and strange as that is. It's an adolescent behavior. There's more illegal drinking in the United States than there is legal drinking, as confusing as that may be. And this is why I question whether we should legalize marijuana. How in the world are we going to keep it away from the 12-year-olds? If you smoke marijuana before you're the age of 12, it changes the structure of your brain. Damn it. And the structure, the portion that it messes up is your short-term memory. You know, the part that allows you to remember things. Damn it. Okay. All right. We've already got these 18 and 19-year-olds drinking. A lot. Not just a little bit, but a lot. They're binge drinking like every weekend because it's cool. Everybody knows it's cool. Let's vote. How many people think it's cool? I'm the only one? It's so cool. Preventative measures to reduce adolescent motor vehicle deaths, longer time between learner's permit and a full license. Maybe you don't need that here on the reservation. In the cities, you definitely need this. In suburban areas, you definitely need this. A longer period of time. Give them a little bit more experience driving before we make them fully licensed drivers. Restrict driving at night because that's when they drink and that's when they drink and drive. No teenage passengers. So you know those two boys, one of them that's telling, I wonder what would happen if we went down in the ditch. He's not in that car, and the other guy's thinking, geez, I hope I stay on the road. My dad will kill me if I get a scratch on the car. But when the two of them are together, he forgets what his dad said about the scratches on the car. And the other kid talks him into driving into the ditch. Zero tolerance for driving under the influence. They should lose their license and not be able to get a license until they're 21 years of age, if they've ever been caught driving drunk. Driving under the influence. And I looked this up yesterday. We haven't decided how much marijuana you can have in your system. Haven't decided how much is inebriation. It's easy with alcohol. We can measure it with alcohol. We can measure it with marijuana, actually. But the problem is, how much is stoned? How much marijuana do you have to have in your system to be considered stoned? And the answer is, there is no answer. Alcohol, it's easy. Well, alcohol is not really that easy, but we have, the criminal justice system has decided that 0.8% is driving drunk. We've decided that. Now the reality is that if I'm a really seasoned drinker, 0.8% doesn't make me drunk. One beer is not going to make me drunk. One six-pack may not make me drunk. So the reality is I may have a lot of alcohol in my system and I'm driving okay. I'm doing okay. I can drive just as well as anybody. I'm not drunk. But I drink a lot. And my system can tolerate a lot of alcohol. So I'm not really drunk. Now the problem is with marijuana is that when people are stoned, we know that they're stoned. They're acting erratically. They're slurring their speech. So we know that they're inebriated. But the question is how much marijuana is in their system. And the reality is if you smoke a lot of pot, you've always got a lot of marijuana in your system. A lot of THC, I'm sorry. You've got a lot of THC in your system. But that doesn't mean that you're inebriated. So right now, that's what we're doing. We're trying to figure out how to decide what inebriation is. With alcohol, we decided after Prohibition, we decided a select amount of alcohol is too much alcohol, despite the fact that you're a really good drinker and you're not really inebriated. Anyway, so we need to do that. We need to create a zero tolerance for driving under the influence. There was a guy in Albuquerque. He had 10 DWIs. Now they've taken his driver's license away. but he's like killed people twice because he had accidents while he was drunk. And it happened the first time and they gave him vehicular manslaughter and they put him on probation. Didn't really make that much difference. This was back in '97. Put him on probation, got another DWI, lost his license. They gave it back to him 6 months later, got another DWI. You know, and through the years, he's accumulated 10, and now he's killed somebody the second time. And now they've taken his driver's license away, forever. But I'll bet that he finds a lawyer that will argue that he needs to drive in order to get to work. I'll bet you. I'll bet you he gets his driver's license. Accidents are still the leading cause of death for adults until they reach the age of 45. By age 65, accidents have dropped to the 9th leading cause of death. It's not because they're not having as many accidents as they were before. It's because they're dying from other things. Heart attacks, cancer, other fun things to have. So other things are killing them. Auto accidents are the leading injury-related death for people 24 to 35. Between 35 and 54, poisoning is the leading injury-related death. Now, why in the world, between the ages of 35 and 54, why would poisoning be so important? Why is it happening there? Why aren't the 24 to 35-year-olds poisoning themselves? What is going on? Are these people stupid? Do they not know how to take medication? 35 to 54? I'm sorry?
Midlife crisis.
They're going through a midlife crisis, so they off themselves with drugs. What an idea. Is that what you do during midlife crisis? No, you buy a red convertible and go out and try to pick up, junior high girls at the you have an affair with the tennis pro over at the country club. That's what you do. Midlife crisis. You don't kill yourself. Not at this stage. But we are taking more medication, so we're more likely to poison ourselves. A lot of medication, a lot of pharmaceuticals, and this is something you need to talk to your doctor about. If you're taking any pharmaceuticals, a lot of them are cumulative. And they will build up in your system. And whereas yesterday's dose is okay, today's dose is toxic. So you need to be careful. You need to make sure that you're taking, not taking a substance that is accumulative, that will build up in your body. As reflexes slow, car accidents once again become leading injury-related deaths for people 55 to 64. Potentially, it sounds to me like this is trying to tell me I'm 70, so I shouldn't be on the road at all. I have no reflexes whatsoever. Did I tell you guys I hit a deer on my way back home, or back here? The home's up there, not here. Okay, all right. So I was driving down the road, and 2 deer started across the road, and it was like wall-to-wall traffic, and I'm thinking, these deer aren't that stupid, are they? And the answer was yes, they are. They are that stupid. So one of them headed across, and he got clipped, but it didn't. He didn't fall down, and he was able to get back up and get into the median. They were headed across another line of traffic. I didn't even watch him after that. But the second deer got hit by a car about 100 yards in front of me. And he hit that deer, and he knocked him into the side rail. So he's over here. And so he slowly gets up, and all of a sudden he starts sprinting. And he's running parallel, and I'm approaching him, and just as I get to him, of course, he decides to cut right in front of me. Now, I've already hit my brakes once, but I got a semi right behind me. Okay. Semis don't stop very well. I don't know if you know that. They can't just slam on their brakes and stop. It doesn't work that way. It takes them like 100 yards to be able to stop. Because they've got all that weight behind them, so it's pushing them. You understand, Chris? Okay. So I'm moving down the road. He hits he heads into to me, and I don't hit my brakes the second time because I got a semi right over my bumper. So I clip him with my front end, and he takes off some of the plastic on my car, and for some reason he slams right back into the back of my car, which flips him up in the air, and he lands in the other lane of traffic, and somebody plows him. Yeah. So, but they got him at like 50 feet after I passed him. I didn't kill him, okay? That other car killed him. I just hit him twice. And I still have his fur on my car, if you can see it. Not the Miata, no, it's my other car. Thank goodness. If I hit him in my Miata, I would have been the one that flipped over. And he would have been standing there without any problems whatsoever. Anyway. Okay, so did I have bad reflexes? Should I have hit my brakes the second time? No, I knew exactly who was behind me. That damn semi was behind me. And he would have killed me. He would have rolled right over me. It was a big semi. Anyway, he would have killed me. I thought I did a good job. This is the second deer I've hit. It was in Iowa. I totaled my wife's car last New Year's Eve. Whoops. Hit a deer. What are you going to do? And of course my daughter, who's never does anything wrong, she's always looking for deer. She never hits deer. And she hasn't hit any yet. I'd never hit any deer until a couple of years ago. Anyway, dead deer. 87 people die every day from unintentional poisoning. 2,277 people are treated every day in emergency rooms for unintentional poisoning. What do you do for unintentional poisoning? You pump their stomach out. Try to get as much of the drugs out of their stomach as possible. It is not comfortable. It's not a whole lot of fun. It's like vomiting into a tube that's stuck in your stomach. But it's something that you have to do in order to keep them from dying. We tried to do the same thing with alcohol poisoning. It doesn't work. With pills, you can pull them out of the stomach. Especially with time-release pills like these, those will not dissolve right away. They're time-released, so they'll stay in your stomach for an hour, 2 hours. So you've got some time to pull that stuff out of the stomach. With alcohol, it just runs right through your system, and there's nothing you can do. Once it gets into your small intestine, nothing we can do about it. 91% of the unintentional poisoning involves drugs. Prescription painkillers, hydrocodone, OxyContin, methadone, cocaine, heroin, of course, are a couple others. The opiates, of course, they get into your system. People will take one and they say, my pain hasn't gone away, I think I'll take another. And they take that second pill, and that second pill is just a little bit too much. And they start having problems, and then they go into the emergency room. Benzodiazepines, Valium especially, will knock you out, and if you take it with alcohol, which is not something you should do, it will kill you. American Indians have the highest poisoning rates, followed by European Americans. So you guys are number one, and we're number two. We're number two. Congratulations, you guys are number one. In 2010, there were 16,259 homicides in the United States, with 61.1% involving firearms. That's 11,078 people killed by guns. White males who die by gunfire are more likely to die in a rural area from suicide. So if white guys die, they usually die by their own hand. However, we're not the only people that live in the United States. There are also African Americans. African American males who die from gunfire are more likely to die in an urban area from homicide. So white people die by suicide, black people die by homicide. As sad as that is. In 2016, there were 17,250 homicides in the United States. The number of homicides per 100,000 people in the United States is 4.7. The most dangerous state in the United States by per capita murders is Louisiana at 11.1 per 100,000. This is something to remember the next time you go to Mardi Gras. like you guys don't go to Mardi Gras every year. New Hampshire is the safest state in the union. It only has 1.7 homicides per 100,000 people. And strangely enough, there's only like 200,000 people in New Hampshire, so that's like 3 people were killed, were murdered in New Hampshire. 74% of people were murdered by firearms. This was in 2016. As we saw, the figure for 2010, if we saw it, was 68.1%. It is increasing. Firearms are becoming more and more dangerous, or they're being used in homicides more frequently. 39% of U.S. households have firearms, so take that to the bank, whatever. You can do anything with that piece of information that you want. Males are 7 times more likely to die by homicide than females are. For every white male murdered, 5 commit suicide. For every black male who commits suicide, 5 are killed by homicide. So we can see that there's a difference between black people and white people. And one of the differences is that African Americans tend to live in urban areas, and there are a lot of whites that live in rural areas. So as we can see, there's a huge difference between white homicide and suicide and black homicide and suicide. The age group that is the most likely to commit suicide are people between the ages of 45 and 54. This is usually when they find out that they've got a terminal illness, as stupid as that sounds. Or they're going through their midlife crisis and decide not to have that affair with a tennis pro, or to start driving around junior high schools looking for their next date. People from Europe are about half as likely to commit suicide as people from the United States, Canada, and Australia, which seems a little odd. So we've got all these white people in the world, and the place where they come from, those individuals don't commit suicide. But if you go up to Canada, or you come down to the United States and look at all the white people in the United States and Canada and Australia commit suicide at a much higher rate. They have double the rate as the people in Europe. I don't know if that seems strange to you. Of course, you guys don't care. You're not white. You don't have to worry about this. But I do, because I'm white, and I have all my relatives are white. And that's a problem. That can potentially be a problem. 80% of all suicide attempts are by females, but 80% of the completed suicides are by males. Males use more lethal means. They use a gun. And of course, it's easy to put a gun in a lethal place, or they hang themselves. Females tend to poison themselves. And if you poison yourselves, as I said before, if we find you, we can grab you and take you to the emergency room and pump your stomach out and save your life. But if you hang yourself, you're dead in about 2 minutes. If you shoot yourself, you're dead in about 2 milliseconds. So, there you go. Males choose firearms 55.7% of the time. Females are the most likely to use poison 40.2% of the time. In the United States, American Indians are the most likely to attempt and complete suicide. And for this reason, there are a lot of individuals that are dealing with this on the reservations. Some reservations are worse than others. This is not the worst one. Does anybody have any idea who commits suicide at a higher rate than anybody else in the United States? It's obviously an American Indian group. Who are they? No. Hell no. Those are the grouchiest people I've ever been around. They'll kill you, not kill themselves. Any ideas? It's in this area, sadly enough. And it ain't Navajos. Actually, you guys commit suicide at a much lower rate than yours is about at the same rate as the U.S. average. Exactly, it's the Apache. You know those guys. Maybe you don't. They're like south of here, they're north of here, they're over east of here. They're all over the place. For some reason, they commit suicide at a rate 4 times the national average. But it's just on their reservations, strangely enough. All right. That's the bad news. But the good news is that Navajos commit suicide about the same rate as everybody else in the United States. So your suicide rates are not that high. Who's I talking to? It's the same. Oh, I was talking. Okay. Okay. Yeah, your suicide rate's not that high. But any suicide is too many suicides. Right. Okay. European Americans are the second most likely at twice the level of anyone else. So this is a really dangerous room because you guys are American Indians. You guys commit suicide at a higher rate, and white people are number 2. So African Americans really don't kill themselves very often. Hispanic Americans are the happiest people in the world. So if we look at personality profile tests, they always come out on top. Hispanic females are like the happiest people in the world, which is irritating. I want to be a Hispanic female when I grow up. Asian Americans, of course, commit suicide at a very, very low rate. Suicide rates are the highest among wealthy people, single people, widowed people, divorced people, depressed people, alcohol-dependent people, those that feel disconnected with society, those that feel that they are a burden to others, those that feel that they are trapped in an inescapable situation, those that feel that they have reached an unattainable, they can't reach an unattainable goal. Those that feel that those that are gay and lesbian youth may be rejected by their peers and unsupported by their family. They have no place to go. They are members of the LGBTQ community, and they feel like there is nobody that is trying to help them. Suicide is often an impulsive act, thus an important deterrent is creating environmental barriers. 57% of all suicides are by firearms, so locking up family firearms can be a deterrent. People who live in a home with a firearm are 5 times more likely to die by suicide than in a firearm-free home. It makes it a lot harder. Sometimes all you need to do is make these people think. That's all you need to do. Today I'm going to commit suicide. Well, if I've got a gun, all I have to do is pick up the gun and shoot myself. If I have to think about it, damn, there's no guns in the house. How am I going to off myself? How am I going to do this? If you can make them think, then they are less likely to try to commit suicide. If you force them to do something, sure, go ahead and commit suicide, but you're going to have to walk down to the gas station and buy a rope and then walk all the way back. If you make them do something, if you make them think, they're less likely to commit suicide. If you force them to think. There was an author whose mother committed suicide. His name was Kurt Vonnegut. If you ever read Vonnegut, Vonnegut admitted that he thought about suicide every day. And he thought about suicide at dusk. It was always as the sun was going down. He thought about killing himself. And he had all of these means of killing himself. He had the rope right there. He had a gun in his house. He had poisons in his house. And every day at dusk, he thought about killing himself. But then he would think about, he had 6 kids. He would also think about where he was in whatever novel he was writing, and he wouldn't do it. And eventually he died at 88, and he didn't die by his own hand. He fell down a flight of stairs. Anyway, all right, so if we can make these people think, we can force them to think. A lot of times they won't do it. A lot of young males will kill themselves because they just broke up with their girlfriend. And everybody knows that there's only one love to everybody's life. Write that down. No, I'm just kidding. There's at least 2, sometimes 3, if you're lucky. And if you're really wild, maybe there's 4 or 5, but we won't go into that. Okay. I've been lucky, I found 3. I know, all the women that I've married have been blind. Well, not blind, but not their eyesight wasn't very good. I look better when you can't see very well. It's so sad. The mental health community is starting to recognize that all attempts at self-injury are not suicide attempts. Once upon a time, if it looked like you tried to commit suicide, they put you on suicide watch, and they put you in a mental health facility for an extended length of time. We don't do that anymore. We try to categorize the type of suicide attempt that it was. Since 2011, Fick et al. And Wilkinson and Goodyear have pointed out that there are degrees of self-destruction from non-suicidal self-injury to gesturer to suicide attempter to suicide completer. This is Wilkinson. And I'll show you what Goodyear looks like right now. There's Goodyear right there. Non-suicidal self-injury behaviors often include cutting the skin, pulling out hair, inserting objects under the skin, administering self-tattoos. This is not a suicide attempt. Experts point out that non-suicidal self-injury behavior may be an attempt to gain attention and ask others for help, to get others to stop bullying you, to use pain to distract persistent negative thoughts and rumination, to relieve guilt from self-punishment, and to fit in with a peer group. Really? Self-tattoos? Sure. Cutting? Yeah. Anorexia? Yeah. There's websites that you can go on, as exciting as this is, that support anorexic behavior. So you can become part of that community just by being anorexic too, or at least talking about being anorexic. I know, it's exciting. So you can become part of any community on the internet. It's kind of like, I just saw a movie last night, Ready Player One. And these guys, they live in a cyber world, and they have no idea what people really look like. And of course, in the movie, eventually they get to meet everybody in real life. I think that's called In Real Life. They call it IRL. IRL, yeah, in real life. So they want to meet you in real life. Anyway, so you can join these communities. So you can try to fit in with that, whatever that peer group is. Self-tattoos, the whole thing. Okay. Falls are the second leading cause of unintentional injury deaths worldwide. 424,000 people die worldwide from falls every year. 80% are in the middle and low income countries. Falls in the United States account for twice as many injuries as any other cause. Falls. Now you guys don't have to worry about this, but as you get older, you're less stable. Sometimes you take a step and you don't feel quite up to it, and you trip yourself. It almost happened to me this morning. I walk around in the dark and I stepped on a piece of dog food. I just about took off. Anyway, I almost killed myself. In 2010, 2,300,000 ER visits were because of falls in the United States. 1 out of every 3 adults over the age of 65 falls every year. Oh my God. 1 out of every 3 adults over the age of 65 dies every year. I'm hoping it's the same person over and over again, so I don't have to worry about it. I'm over 65. Write that down. I hope it's someone else. Worldwide, the number of non-lethal falls accounts for 37,300,000 falls a year. One of the problems with falling down is you break your hip, especially if you're that old, especially if you're female, because females have more porous bones, especially white females, so they break their hips. If you break your hip, 50% of people that break their hip die within a year. Why? Why? Why do people die from breaking their hips? Is it that debilitating? No, it's not that debilitating. It's just like any broken bone. You get over it eventually. You heal up. So why in the world are these people dying? The reason is because they're so old. And when they become sedentary, sometimes they don't, they always will be sedentary. And they die. They die because they don't move. Now you guys don't have to worry about this. You're so young that no matter what happens to you, you can recover from it. Your bodies are flexible. But I'm old, and if I ever broke my hip, I wouldn't be able to move. And if I couldn't move, my bowels would back up, my blood pressure would go up. All of this horrible stuff happens to you, and then I would die. It's just the way it works. So my wife just had both of her hips replaced last summer. I know. And we were hoping that takes care of everything. And now her knee's going down. Yeah. Don't cry, Chris. It'll be okay. It's my wife. What are you crying about? But it isn't just older adults who fall. 2,800,000 children are treated in emergency rooms every year for falls in the United States. Among older adults, 20 to 30% of the falls result in moderate to severe injuries, bruises, hip fractures, traumatic brain injuries. Even if the individual is not injured by a fall, the incident may cause the individual to limit their activities for fear of falling again. This is a picture of my grandson. I can't remember what he jumped on, but evidently he cut his chin. Really good. And you can see he's already got a broken tooth. He cracked his tooth, the poor kid. Anyway, he's real active. You can see, look at this, look at the length of his eyebrows. His eyelashes, I'm sorry, his eyelashes. They're like wings waving. Of course, if he wants something, he just bats his eyes. I'm insensitive to it, but my daughter and my wife, my God, he bats his eyes and they just go gaga over his eyes. I haven't figured that one out. Individual behaviors that may cause problems, alcohol use, texting while driving is the dumbest thing in the world you can do. Taking unnecessary risks like walking along a post, I don't know what she's doing. Higher levels of risk-taking, people with ADHD tend to do that. And a history of injury can lead to frequent injuries. So people with ADHD, a lot of times these individuals will suffer from chronic injuries because they are always taking risks. And sometimes they fall. People with ADHD. Physical environment, some physical environments are safer than others. Adequate lighting, installed smoke detectors, fences, of course, are ways to control your environment. These factors can reduce the rate of injuries related to falls, fire burns, drowning, or violence. I don't know if you've ever seen anybody do this. They get up on an exercise ball with, these are 45-pound plates. This is a 45-pound bar. That's 135 pounds he's got on his shoulders. Now what he's supposed to do is get up on this ball, this unstable ball, and he's supposed to balance with 135 pounds on his shoulders. Why is he doing this? He's building his core. He's strengthening his core, is what he's trying to do. It's the dumbest thing in the world, as you can see. Write that down, Sharon. It's the dumbest thing in the world. I've been lifting weights for 50 years. I've seen more people almost kill themselves with this exercise than just about any other exercise. It's stupid. But you can see he's doing it, and if you go to a gym, you'll see people doing this all over the place. It's stupid. Write that, stupid. Okay. It is stupid. Access to services, access to healthcare services, such as systems created for injury-related care, can reduce the consequences of injury, including disability and death. The health care can range from acute care to rehabilitation. You've got IHS right over here. You guys can use it, I can't, that's okay. I'm not jealous. Social environment, adult supervision, peer group associations, family interactions, school, work, neighborhood, community environments. What the hell am I talking about? Oh, we're trying to prevent, okay, injuries. The family environment is the most important social environment for a child and adolescent. Higher levels of parental mental distress and marital conflict have been seen to predict higher rates of injury in pre-adolescence. Now the reality is that these kids are getting hurt. They're getting hurt not because they're coming in contact with the family, but they're doing more risky things. Now why in the world would these kids, where there's more marital conflict and more problems in their family, why would they do more risky things? Why are they doing that? I'm sorry? Exactly. If the family is focused on them and their problems, then maybe mom and dad will get along and they won't fight so much. Maybe they won't react so in such a depressed manner. But kids will do these kinds of things. As adults, we think of children, we think of ourselves and our marital relationship as it's just us, it's just mom and dad. That's the way we think of it. But the kids see it as a total unit. Adults usually don't do that. Dad's having problems with mom's having problems with dad, and she thinks that their problems are just between the two of them. But that's not the way it works. If there's a whole family there, the whole family's having problems. And the whole family is suffering from what's going on between mom and dad. And no matter what the problem is. It could be a sexual problem, could be a financial problem, it could be an abusive problem. Doesn't really make any difference. Whatever's going on between mom and dad is going on between mom, dad, junior, and sis. It's just the way it works. So in order for, so how are sis and junior going to react? Well, sis and junior are going to try to take the focus off of whatever that horrible problem is and bring it onto themselves. So they will act out. And we see this all the time. So what do? Well, if Junior's got an ADHD problem and if Junior's getting in trouble all the time, we try to control Junior, but we don't deal with the other problem. We don't deal with the whole family unit. We can't, unless they come in. And of course, if mom brings Junior in, and then and Junior tells us that the problem is mom and dad fight all the time, then now we're going to want to get the family involved, but dad won't come in. Now we got, and nothing is ever resolved. So the kid keeps his ADHD, and mom and dad eventually get a divorce. And now we've got the kid acting out for a different reason because mom doesn't have enough time to pay attention to them. You get the picture of what's taking place here. And there's nothing we can do about it, despite the fact that we know exactly what the problem is. We know the problem is mom and dad are having a conflict, and that's causing all this family chaos. But there's nothing we can do about it, because the only reason that we've seen them at all is because Junior's got ADHD, and that's all we can treat. We can treat his ADHD with Ritalin or Adderall or Strattera, but we can't treat mom and dad. We can't treat dad's drinking problem. Parental monitoring can reduce the risk of injury to children. Of course, what's going on? They're sending the kid outside. And the kid's getting into trouble. He's falling down. He's getting bullied by somebody. And while mom and dad are in there fighting, and mom and dad are in there, dad's drinking, and mom is complaining. Anyway. 3 levels of prevention. Primary prevention, changes in laws and other societal policies that are designed to make harm less likely for everyone. That's primary prevention, where we change the laws. Is there a law that we can change to take care of Junior, sis, mom, and dad? Can we change the laws? Is there anything we can do? No! We live in the United States. There's no way we can control that kind of behavior. Secondary prevention, reducing the risk of injury in high-risk situations or for vulnerable individuals. Maybe the kids have been messing around skateboarding in a certain area that people keep falling down and breaking their arms. We fence that off. We won't let them in anymore. Or we turn it into a skate park that is safer, that has fewer dangerous things on it. Or maybe when we put a rubber something over here so that when they go flipping up, if they miss their flip, they fall on this rubber stuff rather than this cement, which is fairly unforgiving. Tertiary prevention, this prevention begins after an injury has occurred, limiting the damage. And of course that has to do with the emergency room, trying to take care of situations. All right, as sad as that story is. What time is it? How am I doing?
36.
Hot damn. All right, let's get started on chapter 8. Look how I'm just flying along here. This is great. I should do this professionally. 6, 4. That's a 4. This must be 8. It is not. It's not 8. That's chapter 5. Where's chapter 8? 6. That's 7.
It's underneath.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there it
Okay,
is.
yeah. Okay, thank you, Chris. I knew Chris would find it. He always finds everything. He's like the best student.
It's like it's right there.
Are you?
Everybody's all like, I'm wearing my glasses, but I'm still squinting.
I'm old. And you're young, so don't make fun of me. Nutrition, obesity, and eating disorders, chapter 8. Okay. Oh, goody, let's talk about chubby people. Obesity is considered in epidemic proportions throughout the world. More than half the population are considered overweight in France, in Australia, in Brazil, in Mexico, in Denmark, in Italy, and Russia. Pudgy people. Why? Well, it's the food that they eat. Russia, they eat a lot of potatoes. Italy, they eat a lot of pasta. Denmark, I don't know what they eat in Denmark. Fish, I guess. Well, fish, that should be good for you. Mexico, what do they eat in Mexico? Lard. Lard. They cook in lard. Brazil, I'm not exactly sure. Australia, who knows? France, they eat French food, I guess. It is against the law to be overweight in Japan. It's against the law. It is against the law. I gained 3 pounds yesterday, and now the cops are coming to my door and they want to arrest me in Japan. All right. They have mandated that a man cannot have a waistline that is greater than 33.5 inches. My waistline is 33 inches, so I'm legal. A woman can't have a waistline larger than 35.4 inches. How about that? The World Health Organization considers obesity as one of the top 10 health problems in the world. They consider pudgy women in Japan attractive, as strange as that may seem. I know, they have this really weird fetish about chubby women in Japan. But they're illegal. They can't have a waist larger than 35.4 inches. As strange as that may seem, I don't know. The Japanese are weird. No, you guys have never been to, they're really very slender people. They are so skinny, it's like, they look like skeletons with skin on them, okay? That's what they look. Some, the Japanese. Never been there, have you? It is freaky. I was in a road race in Japan. It was like running with a bunch of skeletons. Oh my God, it was scary. Oh, okay.
Please.
every morning we do exercises. People
Yeah.
gather around and they all do their exercise.
Tai Chi.
It's construction workers. So
Right.
they were doing construction, so they're the base. So they were watching them and they all gathered. He said they were all stretching and they were all doing exercise, which is what he's doing. Oh, like, wow.
It's the way the company wants them to do.
I wish we could do that here. We could.
We could. In a new plan to get the children in the United States to exercise, former First Lady Michelle Obama started a school lunch and an exercise program called Let's Move. The hope of the program was to get exercise and nutrition information to the parents, improve the quality of food in the schools, make healthy foods more affordable and accessible, and focus more on physical education. There's a Let's Move movement on the reservation, I think. Somebody told me there was. Let's move it. Just move it, okay. Okay. A lot of people complain about the food on the reservation. Of course, they're probably talking about the gas station. But that's where you get all your food. Isn't that where you get all your food? No?
20%.
About 20% of your food, you get it down there. I drive to Gallup to get my food. Among adolescents in the United States, 31.7% are considered obese. In the United States, 68% of the adult population are overweight and 34% are obese. It is estimated that by 2020, 75% of adults will be considered overweight or obese. 75%, 3 out of every 4. So we only see one slender person out of every 4 people that passes us. In 1948, a healthy breakfast consisted of fried eggs, bacon, white toast with margarine, coffee with sugar and fat from the milk bottle. 1 in 4 men aged 55 developed heart disease. Now we know that poor nutrition is a leading cause of heart disease. When I was growing up, this was what we ate. We always had bacon and eggs for breakfast. It was supposed to be good. The bacon wasn't even lean. The bacon, if it had a red spot on it, you were thinking, oh my goodness, I got some meat. But usually it was just fat. Bacon fat. They called it fat back. You ate white bread and you ate margarine on your bread because margarine was supposed to be healthier than butter. It was supposed to be healthier than butter. It's not. No. It has trans fats in it, so it's not really all that healthy. And we drank a lot of cream. We drank a lot of milk. There was no such thing. Well, there was such thing as skim milk, but there wasn't 2% milk. There were 2 types of milk: homogenized milk and skim milk. Skim milk was blue, which is always an attractive color for milk. And then there was milk, and you had to skim the cream off the top of the milk in order to drink the milk. And it was really thick. And we grew up on that stuff. And now we have heart disease because we ate all that bacon, we ate all those eggs, we consumed all that margarine, which is like instant cholesterol in your system. Though it changes frequently and from one piece of research to the next, healthy eating consists of consuming the 46 essential nutrients in one form or another. A good rule of thumb is to consume the 5 major food groups in these ratios. 30% of your food should be vegetables, 30% should be grains, 20% should be fruit, 20% should be dairy, should be protein, and you need to get some dairy in there. Okay, so 20% should be meat. But when we eat a steak, how much steak do we eat? When we eat chicken breast, how much chicken do we eat? Do we eat 1 breast or do we eat 2? We eat the palm of our hand. Breasts don't come in palms of hands. That's like a half a breast. Chickens look like turkeys used to look. They're so big now. They've got these monster chunks of meat on them. Okay. So how much protein are we supposed to eat? 20%. of our food should be protein. It is estimated that 11.3% of the daily calories consumed in the United States are calories from fast food. That's really hard here in Saley because there ain't no fast. Well, there is. We can go to the. Marius keeps doing this. He keeps going over and eating a hamburger over at the snack bar. Right? You can do that. He keeps doing that. Marius, I'm going to brag about Marius just for a second, okay? Or complain about him. He's lost like 30 pounds in the last year. I'm so jealous. I stay the same weight all the time, and he's lost all this weight. The guy's down below 175. I'm bragging about it. And the last time he was, see, I used to give him sodas. I used to give him a can of Mountain Dew, keep him away on the way home. Just give him a can of soda. I don't do that anymore because I don't want to give him the sugar. The other day he went to the snack bar and got a salad. And a cup of strawberries. Who is this person? He's such a good boy. I just wanted to pat him on the back because he was such a good fellow. Isn't that great? Marius. He's my hero. Wish I could eat like that. Fast food. So what is the fast food around here? Better be Burger King because that's the only one within 50 or 60 miles, right? Chinle? Oh, Church's does. Miss Church's? Isn't there a Church's chicken down there? That's like almost all breading and no chicken.
I think it's like warm-ups, like Hot Pockets.
That sounds horrible. Is there any actual food in there?
I don't know.
Maybe
They,
not.
they have it at the bookstore.
Ah,
Um,
well, that's where he went to get his salad, at the bookstore. Good for him. Marius is a hero. Frequent fast food consumption has been shown to cause weight gain. Of course, you eat a lot of grease. African Americans consume a higher percentage of calories from fast foods. This is a higher percentage than are consumed by Hispanic Americans or European Americans. In every age group, obese adults consume the highest percentage of their calories from fast food. I went to college, when I started college, there were 15 African Americans in my dormitory. They were the only African Americans on campus. There's only 2 of them are alive now. The rest of them have died from heart disease, from all kinds of strange things. They're African Americans. They eat a lot of fast food. It's part of their culture. As sad as that is. Of course, they would be in their 70s now, but they didn't make it. Most of them died in their 50s. I hold a record at my college, and one of the individuals was African American. He died in his 40s, so he's dead. But we set a record together, and it's still there. The record's still there, but he's no longer with us. And of the 4 of us on that relay team, he's the only one that has died, and he was the only African American in the group. In every age group, obese adults consume the highest percentage of their calories from fast foods. Unfortunately, people in the United States do a lot of mindless eating, where we eat to get rid of the food that we have, no matter how much it is. This is a problem with supersizing. This is a problem with large containers. This is a problem when we feel that we must finish the portion that we are given. That was what my wife was told. If your mother wouldn't have made it, if it wasn't good, and whatever she puts on your plate is the amount you have to eat. So she had to clean her plate every time she ate food. So she overate for every meal. Always overate. Supersizing. They don't do this anymore, but in the old days, if you went into McDonald's, they asked you if you wanted to supersize it. Well, supersized drink is like a bucket, right? Drinking a bucket of Coke. You supersize? You're a good fellow. You and Marius are heroes. Okay. Why don't we stop right here? We'll pick this up next time with more fat people. More fun fat people eating potato chips.